yeah, if we can keep it up, I don't see any issues with it at all. So, all right, well, with that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Are there any opposed?
Kind of the discussion that we had the last meeting last month. I mean, I think it's important if you're part of this decision-making process. If you can't be here, you can't be here. You know, but I think that the forum exists for a reason, and it's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because if I can't make it, I mean, I'm either too sick to attend, too sick to work, I'm out of town, then I'm not going to be able to vote. And I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I get that as well.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, so
Absolutely.
yeah, so I was gonna.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you standing up and being bold like that. So, and again, we can always kind of circle back to that item if like attendance is a problem, and we're always gonna right at the, the bare minimum.
Would you be able to, like, we don't have a quorum, well, we don't have a quorum, we can't do anything anyway, right? So what does it allow the people online? Just to be participating? I mean, what does it allowing somebody to vote online if we don't have a quorum in person?
Nothing, because I mean, people in the room, if there's no quorum of people in the room.
There'd be no votes on action
Same way.
items at all, because you'd be
Well,
public.
then, what does it matter? Am I missing a point here? You can't vote on anything unless you have an in-person quorum, right?
Correct.
So voting remotely allows you just to sort of
Well, but
play in the sandbox?
we have to, those of us who are present have to vote each time.
Right.
Once we achieve quorum, we then have to have a separate vote that says we will also allow those online to vote remotely today.
And we want to stop doing that.
I think the
That was
motion is
the
to allow.
discussion as far as to
Yeah.
incentivize in-person attendance.
Right.
And the only reason I would see where it could make a difference is if there's like a split vote and it's like we're counting votes, basically,
Okay.
which.
My understanding, the motion on the floor, though, is to allow those voting members who are online presently to join tonight's meeting as voting members.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The fact that people are allowed to vote means that they're part of the group in terms of membership. That's the big problem with anything that denies people the right to vote. Is it says you're not part of the group, that we don't care about your interests. So I say let people online vote because it's necessary to be a part of the membership.
All right, well, we've gone ahead and passed that, so we can go ahead and move on to the public comment period. 3 minutes per speaker. If we have anybody here or online, please make yourself known. All right, hearing none. Going once, going twice. All right, we can go ahead and move on to status item number 4, the approval of minutes from January 25th. Does anyone have any comments regarding those?
Yeah, I do. This is Chris Vellerhoff. I was present online for the last meeting, and that is not reflected.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, could I get a motion to approve as amended?
I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second, Katrina Corcoran.
Okay. Jim Shirk with the motion, Katrina Corcoran with the second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion passes. You can go ahead and start with our status reports tonight.
Hey, Jim, Pardon me. Can we do members' interest too? We skipped that. It's not on the agenda tonight.
Oh.
Usually that's after public comment.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
so
point.
since I jumped my foot in that one, Friday night, which is in 2 days, we're having a critical mass ride at 8 o'clock at Curtis Hickson. Last month, we had a good ride. Tim came out and rode with us. We had about 35 people. On Sunday, the 12th, critical mass, we have a Sunday ride. We leave Curtis Hickson at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, probably about 10 miles, very low key, low speed, beginner kind of a ride. We'll stop somewhere for ice cream, probably. And maybe, I don't know if Julie's going to talk about it, but Bike Walk Tampa Bay has Ride with the Mayor at Temple Terrace coming up on Friday, the 17th, 7:30 in the morning. It's Florida Bike Month.
Yes.
And that's going to be at the Family Rec Center on White Way. It says here it's a 3.9-mile ride with the mayor. I don't think the mayor's much of a bike rider, so you don't have to worry about getting blown away.
Anybody else have something they'd like to share?
Hi, this is Wanda Vinson, citizen at large. I just wanted to say I'm thrilled with the Cass Street bike lane. I'm a bicycle commuter and that's my route every day. And in November, I was hit by a car getting off the Cass Street Bridge. And coincidentally enough, that's when the bike lane started to go in. So it was lovely riding home today. There were 5 people in the bike lane with me. So that is so nice to see.
Echo that comments, Jonathan Forbes. I wrote it on Monday. The only impediment was all the cement trucks waiting to dump at the building site across the street. I don't know if that was arranged. There weren't any cones, any other guidance or flag devices there, but they were corking it up. On that, very nice.
Anybody else? Members' interests for the online audience? All right, I just got to say, I love coming out to the critical mass ride. It was really cool to see Peter in his element there, directing traffic and keeping us all safe.
Yeah, I'm the sweep, so I stand, I ride in the back and I yell. Telling people where to turn, get out of the lane, watch the cars, that kind of thing.
So, yeah, it's a good time. Encourage all y'all to come out. Really nice to just ride the streets, feel safe, and the big group and everything. It's a good thing. All right. So with that, we can move on to the status reports. We've got 6 of them tonight, so we better get to it. So we'll start off here with agenda item number A, letter A. It's the City of Tampa micro mobility update.
Calvin, I have made you the presenter. You should be able to, there we go. We are seeing your blue City of Tampa screen right. There we go.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, but it appears to be the notes slide as well.
What about now?
It's still the same, but we can see it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Calvin Thornton. I'm the City of Tampa micromobility engineer. I was asked to kind of give a quick overview of the program we have and talk about some of the things that we've done with the micromobility. So tonight I'm going to give a summary of the current pilot program and an overview of the next phase of micromobility within the City of Tampa. Things that we would talk about in phase we give an overview, outcome, use of the fee, types of vehicles, the deployment zone, exclusive zone, and the docking system. I won't cover everything on every slide because, and I did share with Wade the PowerPoint presentation, so there's a lot of information on the slide and I won't cover everything. Summary of the current pilot program. Initially, when we launched the pilot program back in 2019, we had 4 providers: Bird, Line, Jump, and Spin. Each provider provided over 600 scooters per provider. And to date, we have collected in revenue $1.9 million in fees from those providers. And that's what went directly to the city of Tampa coffer. We have partners with the program. Our partners are University of South Florida, the Cutter Center, and the Valerian Group. The Valerian Group assists us in community engagement and outreach. And USF and the Cutter provide for us monitoring, community evaluation, operation, and best practice. As you can see, the pilot program was 12 square miles in and around the downtown area. Since the program inception, since 2019, we've had 1.6 million trips in and around the downtown area, about 700,000 in the west downtown, which is the Hyde Park area. In the north downtown and Ybor City area, we've kind of had about 500,000. So clearly you see that people are using micromobility in just that small square 12-mile area. This is just a repeat of what I just said. Some of the things that we've observed are fewer people driving, fewer fatalities. One thing this does provide, it's provides some equity. I'll give you an example. When I was working in my downtown office, an individual who's cleaning the carpet came by and says, he saw the helmets on the back wall and said, "Hey, you got anything to do with those scooters?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I use those daily to travel back and forth from downtown to work." He said, "Normally it would cost me to pay a friend about $5 to ride back and forth. Now I can ride the scooter for about $3. So it does provide some mobility for people who don't want to rely upon more costly service like a friend or the Uber system. So it is working. We also have a number where you can report any problems. If you have a scooter that somebody left in your front yard, or if a scooter's blocking the sidewalk, we have a 1-800 number. That number is 1-877-SCOOTER-HELP. And we also have an email address, scooter, SCOOTER.HELP@tampagov.net. As well as on our website, we also have all of the providers' information to where you can report any problem. And when we receive a problem, we immediately send out the provider and they correct it immediately. Revenues of those $1.9 million, what we've spent them on. Such things as the multimodal complete street studies. We've spent them on multimodal infrastructure. We've also used some of it for working with our USF partners to evaluate the program. And we've also spent some of it on the connectivities. We've contributed funds towards the Cross Bay Ferry. So you can get on a Razor scooter here now in Tampa, ride the Cross Bay Ferry over to St. Pete, then get on another Razor scooter and ride around the city of St. Pete. So you can make a trip from Tampa to St. Pete without ever having to get into an automobile. And you can also do the same for the Coast Bike as well. That's over here as well, and also in St. Pete. Now I'm going to go through an overview of the Phase 1 citywide program. Seeing the success of the pilot, we decided to go ahead and launch citywide. And in the citywide program, we're adding 1,500 e-bikes from Lime, 1,500 e-bikes from Spin, also 1,500 seated scooters from Razor. One of the things that we heard from our ADA community is they wanted to be included into micromobility. And so we require each of those providers to provide 1% additional vehicles to meet the needs of the ADA. And that program is going to be geared more to the needs of the ADA. And if they want some of these out on the street, then we're going to place them in the street. If they want them at a designated location, we're going to try to provide that as well. So that program is something that we're going to be working with our ADA communities and trying to determine how best to deploy these types of vehicles. And this is some of the types of vehicles that will be deployed by Lime. This is what will be deployed by Spin. And this is the type of vehicle that will be deployed by Razor. Just to repeat again, we will have, once the program is fully launched, over 3,000 e-bikes, 1,500 scooters with seat, and 45 adaptive vehicles all over the city of Tampa for a total of 4,545 vehicles across the city of Tampa. And the city of Tampa is about 114 square miles of land area. The program will also have a docking system for some of those areas where we have high riderships, like the downtown, north downtown, and the west downtown. We require that aspect of the program to be locked to a bike rack or some type of scooter rack. And so in that area, we will have providers will provide racks in those areas, and you will have to ride it from rack to rack. Now, for those individuals who wants to get off anywhere, you have the ability to do that, but there will be a penalty. There will be a fee, and we call that an out-of-hub bounty system. And so if you leave it out, you will be assessed a fee. And if individuals who wants to participate in the bounty system and place it back in, then you can collect that bounty towards your next ride or towards your next trip on micromobility. And an example of a bounty fee would be something like, if you leave it out, there'll be a $5 fee. For somebody who places it back into the system, it'll be $3 collected towards their next trip. To launch citywide, we're going to be, we've carved the city up into 15 zones. And in those zones, certain numbers of vehicles will be deployed. So there will always be a minimum of 50% of those numbers allocated in those zones that will be deployed into those districts. So that way we won't wind up with all 4,500 in the downtown area. And to get equity into all of those zones, the operators will have to deploy a certain number of vehicles in those zones. Example, like in the New Tampa area, they have to deploy 393 vehicles in that zone. This is just an overview of phase 1 as of September the 23rd or November the 8th for Lime and Razor. That's when they both kind of started launching the system. To date, now Lime has over 300 e-bikes in and around 14 zones. Razor has roughly now about 100 scooters in about 5 to 6 zones, and Spin has over 200 bicycles across about 10 zones. We still have in place our prohibited ride locations, places like the University of Tampa, the Riverwalk, parking garages, ports properties, Armature Works, 7th Avenue, places that's not appropriate for shared micromobility, meaning they kind of move a little too fast to be riding on the sidewalk on Bay Shore or the Riverwalk. This is just an example of the rack that Lime installed. This is over to by Armature Works. This is over by, oh, I wanted to, what's the park called? Perry Hobby Park. And I think that person there is probably one of our famous members on riding cycles. That's Christine. Am I going back or forward? It's another shot of it. Any questions?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
All right, hey Cal, it's Jonathan Forbes. Thank you very much for the work on it. I was wondering if you could spend some time to talk about the arrangement that you have with each of the providers in regards to the fees. And this has been a very sensitive topic, at least for me, because I saw a couple last week, there was a news article, 200 of these vehicles have been fished out of the river over 6 dives. And I think there hasn't been any kind of penalty assessed against any of the providers. Is that contained in this year's contract or this phase's contract?
A lot of the vandalism and I'll say theft of the vehicles it's being done by individuals who creating mischief. And hopefully our goal is we have created for all of the bridges, and where we're finding most of them are is on the bridges, where one individual might park it on the bridge and then his buddy comes along and tosses it off into the river as a challenge. Well, we've now created what the bridges, all of the bridges, a no parking zone. So an individual cannot leave them on the bridge and therefore should not be tossed into the river. We've kind of implemented that, and we have saw a dramatic reduction in the number of products that are being tossed into the river. A lot of this was a learning curve as part of the pilot program. And so we are making changes and adjusting on a regular basis to make sure that these things does not wind up in the water in some type of river. You can probably go on YouTube and find a lot of YouTube videos where people find it entertaining to damage these scooters. And so we've had similar repeats and similar vandalism incidents here in Tampa as well.
Thank you. Now, I know in the original contract, there was supposed to be a maintenance list or a list of accountability of each and every vehicle on a usage as well as an active status. Is that going to continue? And is there any provision in that contract that says if there's a non-usage of a vehicle over a period of, let's just say, 2 weeks or so on, that we do have some recourse against the vendor to try and find those scooters and get them out?
You mean non-use, like if they disappear off the vendor's chart?
Well, we're going to have 1,500 Razor scooters, and if we apply the terms of the first contract, there's going to be a report coming out accounting for all 1,500 Razors and how many have been used. And if we have the same, and for example, if you have the same scooter, let's just say number 322, that has been static for 2-3 weeks, I would think that we would want to find out where it is, or at least they're all GPS locator, see where the scooter is. And if it's anywhere in the proximity of water, I think we have a problem. So either, I go back to either the vendors aren't providing the correct information as to the location, or whoever's getting that report isn't enforcing that locator.
As far as the location and the status of the vehicle, the vendor knows on a, I would say, per minute basis exactly where their vehicles are located. And so that, and know the status of it. That aspect of the program is constantly monitored and reviewed. What typically happens in many cases when they disappear off the system is usually some form of vandalism, meaning somebody have confiscated the battery and disabled the system, or either or found a way to disable the system to make it disappear off. But on most cases, all of these are monitored 24-hour a day, 7 days a week. They're real-time monitoring of these. So it's not a lack of monitoring. This is usually someone going above and beyond and doing something to disable these vehicles.
So stated differently then, so if we have one that goes off grid, so to speak, we have no way to go back and see where that one was at the last marking point. And I'm just being sensitive to the river. That's what I'm being sensitive to.
Yeah, no, they would know exactly when it goes off grid. They would know exactly when it went offline. And if it's taken offline near water, they obviously know that it's probably being tossed into the river. And in some cases, even when it's being tossed in the river, it still is communicating.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if they know that, okay, so Calvin, if they know it's being tossed in the river then, why are they then forcing Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful to fish it out 2 times a year and do damage for, what would that be, about 6 months?
They're not forcing Keep Tampa Bay to fish them out. They're in partner with Keep Tampa Bay. They're out there regularly and routinely with Keep Tampa Bay. They are contributing fees towards the recovery of those as well. And so this is not just Keep Tampa Bay alone doing this. This is a partnership. The city of Tampa is a partner with this, Tampa Police Department. A number of the other law enforcement agencies are partners with this. So this is just not one individual. Yes, Keep Tampa Bay does take the lead on it, but when they choose to do a cleanup, there are numerous partners. Even the city of Tampa, we have a barge that we use for maintaining the bridge structures. We've been a partner by bringing out our barge and participating in this. So this is and it's just not scooters we're fishing out the river when they're out there.
I know. There's some bike there. There was some signs and some.
Yeah, they're fishing other things out of the river. So it's all hands on board and removing anything out of the river.
All right. So you say when they're partnering, is that more than 2 times a year then? Because it's only been six times that the newspaper article quoted.
They just finished the cleanup and they're looking to do another one, I think, next month. Okay. So it's on an ongoing basis. And so each time they go out, the model products they're getting out of the river less and less. So we're doing a much better job in keeping things out of the river. Well, I'm going to speak just to scooters. We're doing a much better job of keeping scooters out of the river. And hopefully we will be an example to other communities. Now, I'm going to applaud the efforts that's being done here in Tampa. When you look at this type of activity and nothing kind of occurs in a vacuum. In most cities that have waterways that have this type of product, this is a regular routine problem with scooters and or other shared vehicles. We're doing a much better job than most communities because we are recovering them and we are cleaning our waterways from these items. So hopefully if we can successfully eliminate or minimize this problem, we'll be an example for other communities on how to go about doing this.
Well, thank you, Calvin. I appreciate that. But I kind of go to the point of one in the river is one too many. So Thank you. That's all I have.
I agree with you totally. Anything in the river is one too many. We have a lot of stuff that they find out that just not scooters. You'll be amazed. Drones, other things like that are being reported finding in the river now. So yes, it is a problem.
All right, Calvin, I think we got another comment for you. Chris?
Calvin, this is Chris Fellerhoff. I just want to clarify something. Looking at the vehicle list, this new citywide program, see 2 types of e-bikes, and then the sit-down scooters, and then the adaptive scooters. So are the stand-up scooters that we've seen for several years being phased out completely?
The pilot program will be phased out. And once we move away from the pilot program, the goal is to move towards smarter vehicles that have onboard video systems where it will identify the proper place to park. It will be able to identify where an individual can ride, so we can minimize things like sidewalk riding. So hopefully at each round, at each level that we move the program, we will get smarter vehicles that will minimize some of the challenges we are experiencing with the pilot program.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how patterns of use change with that, both with the docking system introduction and the new vehicles. I think a lot of the popularity of the stand-up scooters was the ability to just find one in a random place and leave it in a random place. And that was a detriment in some ways, but also made the convenience really, really high. Unless you happen to live on a corner where they ended up.
So,
but I could always find one when I lived in Tampa Heights, just walking out my door.
And we're hoping that the lock tool system actually goes a long way to minimizing some of those problems. When people have to force to lock them up to something, I mean, even if you choose to leave it on the bridge or leave it near the water and lock it up to something, then it makes it more difficult for somebody to come along and toss it into the river. So we're putting in play a number of things that should minimize some of the vandalism that's taking place. And so as we phase out the pilot and move into phase 1, we should see a dramatic shift in how people ride and or treat these types of vehicles.
So Calvin, just to get you right, they're getting rid of all of the stand-up scooters?
No, we're not getting rid of the standard scooter. We're going to phase out phase 1, which is the pilot program. Once we go into phase 2 of the system, we will bring back stand-up scooters, but the stand-up scooters will have different requirements.
Okay.
So there'll be more than 4,500 total vehicles then? Because I just looking at the numbers.
Yes.
Saw the numbers that added up to the 2 types of bikes and the sit-down scooters. So there'll be a lot of stand-up scooters around also.
There'll be a lot of micromobility around the city. To kind of give you an example, the stand-up scooters have only existed in the 10 square mile area. The city of Tampa is 100 square miles, so that's probably that's 10 times what we've have had scooters in. So we're looking at when we go to the stand-up scooters, we're going to probably increase the allocation of stand-up scooters from the present 2,400 now to 3,000. So overall, the program should have roughly about 7,000 micromobility vehicles citywide over 100 square miles area.
Bus will have to be docked, just like the bikes and the.
Docking will be required in 3 zones. As we experience other problems in other zones, we have the ability to turn on that as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Victoria Klug. I have a quick question, Calvin. Do you have any information on injury reports that have been caused by discarded or cluttered sidewalks to other pedestrians, bicyclists, or our ADA friends? Do you have any injury statistics or data?
Yes, we work with the University of South Florida. They collect the injury and accident data. Initially with the launch of the pilot program, we saw I won't say increase, a much higher incident of accidents as related to individuals riding them. One of the aspects of the program is that with new riders, the incident of falls and injuries occurs because of the unfamiliar with the vehicle and familiar with the roadway system. Over time, that number drops dramatically because once an individual are used to riding them, it becomes a lot more, roadway and vehicle becomes a lot more intuitive on what you should do in case you counter something. The other thing we've also experienced too, because we've changed the culture in Tampa, and as you all know who are regular cyclists, the culture towards drivers or automobiles towards bicycles and micromobility vehicle was always hostile, meaning the driver always thought that they had the right to the roadway. Now drivers look out more for micromobility vehicles because there are just many of them. And so we're changing the culture, and by changing the culture, we're also not seeing as many automobile to micromobility collisions.
Right, I was mainly concerned about the actual mobility vehicles causing ones that were really not even being used, just being discarded, blocking roadways for people that are in wheelchairs, causing them to tip over, pedestrians, little kids, someone, going for a run and having those things. I know it's going to get better, but do you have any data on it currently since you started this program?
To date, we haven't had any. I think we've only received one incident where a micromobility vehicle have hit a pedestrian. I think there have been more private incidents occurring than there have been public than the sheriff. Yes.
I'm talking about the vehicles that are left around the city and causing a hazard. That's the information I was wanting.
We do not have any incidents where the vehicles around the city that are part of the shared program have had any accidents with the ADA community. We haven't had a reported incident of that. That is correct.
Yeah. And that's good. That's good. I see it sometimes and I wonder how somebody is navigating a sidewalk when it's blocked. Whether an ADA or a mom in a stroller or me riding my bike or me going for a run, that sort of thing. But if you're saying you've only had one incident of that, that's wonderful. And that's fine.
We regularly get complaints, and whenever we receive a complaint from an ADA community, we send out the provider to correct the problem. It's like anything. It's like anything that's blocking the sidewalks. And if you've ever ridden the sidewalk in an urban environment, you run into solid waste containers, automobiles, tree limbs, everything blocking the sidewalk.
All
and
right.
so, like anything, when we receive a complaint, we go out and take care of it.
I think we need to get moving here. So, thank you very much, Calvin, for that great presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead and move on to the next one. It's going to be about FDOT resurfacing, their RRR program, and the safety improvement process. And Liz Winters is going to present.
Hi, I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
I'm David Gutstein, District 7 Safety Studies Engineer, and I've actually been working on the resurfacing program the last year and a half, and kind of set up Liz Winters nicely to take over the program, but we're still assisting her in the safety office. So with that, before I get too far into it, also pro cyclist, and raced all over the world, and now I just commute to work on my bike. So this is awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. All right. So we're good. I like it. That'd be me. My bike's in his car. I felt really weird to drive over. I'm riding home after this. I live in Baltimore, so I'm with you. We'll go. All right. So basically, we're going to talk about the project determination, financial project numbers, definition of how that works. Then I'm going to talk about the desktop safety reviews. That's what we're doing with all the projects. going to explain the work program process and how that's changed from when I first took over to now. And then I'm going to give a quick example and then leave you guys a little time for Q&A. I'm going to try not to get too into the weeds, but feel free. So basically, District 7 for fiscal year construction 26. So that's projects that are going to start getting built in July of 2026. There's going to be 230 lane miles approximately in District 7. So that's all 5 counties. That's not just Hillsborough County, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, Pinellas County. For fiscal year 27, we're looking to do almost double that. So a lot more projects, a lot more resurfacing, a lot more construction. And the way these projects are determined is you look at the pavement condition survey and see like which roads have cracking, rutting, rideability, potholes, all those things go into the order of the resurfacing program and how we maintain our roads. And with that said, the priority can change. We move things up and down. With that, we created a safety RRR prioritization for which ones have the highest fatal and severe injury crashes per mile per year. So I went through all that data and tried to figure out which project we want to really like push to get as much of that safety funding put into these projects. Because really the bottom line is we're going out there and resurfacing the roadway. It's really a great opportunity to add a bike lane, add a cycle track at Cass Street. You've already got an existing right of way. We're looking at what are the constraints, what can we do to really improve the safety of, honestly, the biggest, scariest roads in District 7. And it's a really perfect opportunity. Why do a separate project later if we already have a project coming and we know about it? So, I mean, we work really hard. It's a lot of coordination, a lot of groups, and, you know, we're dealing with a lot of different, City of Tampa. I had a meeting with them like a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's a lot of organization. So the big change is, I mean, like I said, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but that was the idea, is to explain how it works. The item number is for the financial project number. The item segment is basically what changed. Basically, all you need to know is it went from before we just did a -1 and -2, which is the item segment. That's the only thing that's really changed. And then the phase is that third number, and that'll tell you like if it's a 5 and it's construction. And the second is the type B, and then so if it's a 2, then it's like a consultant or contractor is doing the construction versus it's in-house or something. And I can send out the presentation if you guys don't already have it. It's too detailed here, but and then the sequence is how we track what kind of project, what kind of improvement it is that we're adding, whether it's just resurfacing or if we're doing like a crosswalk or a pedestrian crossing or some other improvement. So the way we did this is basically every single project, we did a really in-depth desktop safety review, or we went out in the field and we actually reviewed it. I drove all 226 lane miles and like really thought while I'm driving them, what can we do here? What's wrong? What can we improve? How can we really get these improvements into it? And then we look at the crash data, the roadway characteristics, traffic volume, and figure out what are some ways we can get these improvements into these resurfacing projects. You got immediate, we can do a traffic service request where we just get out there and quickly like add some signage or just move some stuff around, because we don't want to wait to 26 for something that's very simple, right? That's a long way out. So that's our short term. Midterm is with this RRR project though. This is our opportunity. We're already gonna be out there. We're already making it a little bit crazy with construction. Let's get some stuff in the ground while we have that opportunity. And then long term is the work program. It's a big, you know, something that we can't do. We need right away. There's drainage impacts. That's a whole separate project. Then we can program that accordingly. So basically, FPM 114 is the resurfacing. And basically what it said and what changed when I took over the program is actually DOT is pushing so hard that we said, hey, we can justify it for safety. Let's put some extra money into whatever we have to do to save a life. I mean, obviously we got to prioritize because there's so many needs out there, but basically every decision has to come to the district safety office. And so I was kind of hinting on this. This is a big change, right? We got -1, milling and resurfacing only. -2 is complete streets. -3 is safety features. So that was our past process. So like -2, when I say complete streets, that's like the cycle track downtown. I mean, that was a really massive undertaking, figuring out how to use a resurfacing project, working with the city, how can we completely rechange the roadway, but use those funds that are already there. So we had to do a -2 complete streets project. The goal now is let's get it all into the -1 and let's plan, let's get ahead, let's do it. Obviously something like a full-on cycle track, maybe we can do that. We've got enough time, we work together, we get ahead of it, maybe it's possible. That's the goal. I mean, we're not gonna be able to do that on every project, but if the opportunity's there, we're gonna look into it. That's why I had a meeting with the City of Tampa, just trying to make sure we coordinate. But we still have that last number, which is the sequence, so that we can track the different milling and resurface complete streets or additional features. So this is in Pinellas County with an example. You can see how it was just a -1 milling and resurface, and then -2 was the complete streets elements. So anything that we're doing to like repurpose lanes, that sort of stuff, -2. But now the goal is with an early project coordination between myself, the Withers, and all the different offices at DOT, we can get that all done in one process at the beginning. You know, it's a big vision. It's not that easy. Don't expect miracles, but we're trying really hard to improve the process and, you know, get a lot done with as little bit of money as possible. So here you can see the different, you know, there's 5 different mobilizations for the different sequences, but, you know, a little bit in the weeds here. So, questions? Awesome. You have any questions?
What is your top priority? I mean, you're talking about the process. Do you have some priority right now?
Yeah, so I don't want to get too into the details, but when I was looking at the fatal and severe injuries per lane mile per year for fiscal year 26, in Pinellas County, it was actually in Pinellas County, it was 5 or so fatal and severe crashes per year per lane mile versus like our lowest priority was only like 1. So it's a pretty big difference. Obviously, if we have extra funding, let's put it to the top.
Right.
So with that project, we're looking at trying to add a few signals and some big, and what was interesting is there was actually two different segments. So
On the same street?
on the same street, sandwiched by another one in the middle that's actually a year earlier that wasn't on my list.
Yeah.
So I worked with them and I'm saying, hey, let's look at the typical section, which is like the lane width, right? And let's see, is there room to maybe add a bike lane? You know, we narrow the lanes. You know, you can only do what you can do. But if we're already going out there, how can we incorporate it into all 3 of these projects? Even though one wasn't in my list, I was attending all the scoping meetings, so I can kind of, hey, this one was a priority for this. Let's try to incorporate it. So.
John?
Chuck and Vicky, member at large. Have you had any success with getting the local agencies to put in money to add into these resurfacing projects, or have you had those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're definitely working on. And I think that the big vision from our director is if we can get far enough ahead of this, we can get in line with the NPOs and the TPOs and their prioritization and kind of work their projects into our projects, because we're always so, you know, I say behind, right? But we're talking 5 years out, and that's behind, you know, because it's a big machine that just takes a lot of planning and and there's so many things. It's crazy. I mean, you know, it's like, good question. Obviously, we're working on it. That's why I have those meetings, right?
I got a question for you. For your high crash list, do you do serious injury and fatal crashes per lane mile? Do you do per AADT as well to look into that?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. This was just like me kind of coming up with, how can we quickly come up with a prioritization just to answer that question. We already did an in-depth crash analysis of every corridor and where we needed to do things, but just kind of figuring out how to prioritize. And I agree with your point. That's why I did it per lane mile. It's not perfect. I definitely, we have the volumes. You see though, the one that, I'm not getting into the details, but our top one in Pinellas County also had really high volumes. So I understand your point 100%. The good news though is for fiscal year 26 resurfacing program, I was able to get most of our big ticket recommendations incorporated. So it really, that prioritization didn't actually come into play that much. I mean, it did, but it was surprising how, and I don't know if it's going to happen next year. I don't want to make any promises. John's telling me it's never going to happen again. We'll see. I'm working on it though. Don't quote me on it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone else online?
And last slide, safety message. There's some resources on Arrive Alive, buckle up, look at your ticket, safe route to school, target zero. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some resources. If you want to learn a little bit more, they're here. And most importantly, with all your further questions, contact those winners.
You said it was Dave?
Yeah, David got me.
Thank you.
And also Emmett Duran is here too. He's the new District 7 Safety Program Engineer. So he'll be. I think I go next. Yeah.
Okay.
Really fun.
All right, well, yeah, next we've doing number C here, walk bike safety outreach on HIN with geofencing. And this will be Emmett Duran, Cutter.
Myself. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Emmett Duran. I started last month, District 7 FDOT as the new District Traffic Safety Engineer in the Safety Office. Today, we'll be presenting to you on the safety outreach and select high injury networks. This is going to be a pedestrian bicycle outreach education project. And I have with me Julie Bond from Cutter. She will be presenting to you on the details.
And I am from Cutter. And Emmett was at Cutter at one point.
So was I.
But yeah, and so was David. And now we were so fortunate to have him at FDOT. And so I'm going to present this project to you along with Emmett. And then if you have questions at the end, we're here to answer. So I'm excited. I served on the PPAC for many years, so it's exciting to see you. Lots of new faces here, though. So a little bit on this project background. So this project is really a collaboration. And as I look around the room and heard where everyone was from, as you watch this is a collaboration not only with the TPO and FDOT and Cutter, this is a collaboration with all of you. So we have someone from health, you need to collaborate with us. Well-built bikes. We have people in the room that need to be watching this presentation, and I will be contacting you because it's going to take all of this to make this project a success. And John, you too. I saw that look. So how many of you have heard of the safe systems approach? Okay, quite a few of you. So a little background. So this originated with the Hillsborough TPO. And so I'm working with Gina and Wade and Lisa. And as you know, they have identified the high injury network. So I know you were asking about DOTs. The TPO and DOT, they already identified this high injury network that I'm going to be working with. So they did that work for me, and then we worked together, collaborating to identify the corridors we're going to work on. And then FDOT has Target Zero. I know, how many of you have heard of Target Zero, FDOTs? Okay, many hands. And so they have Target Zero, and so that's, it's similar to Vision Zero. It's just their own kind of way to look at Vision Zero, and it's a really in-depth, great program. So we're all working towards the same goal, right? Cutter, FDOT, the TPO, and I'm also including US DOT's Safe Systems approach, because we're going to follow some of that in our project. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that. So if you look around this wheel, you can see safe roads, safe vehicles, post-crash care, right? We want to look at if someone is in a crash, we hope they aren't, but what do we do? Post-crash care is included in this. Safe road users and safe speeds. This program is going to focus on 2 of those. We can't focus on all of them, so this one is going to focus on 2, which are safe speeds and safe road users. So that is our focus. A little more about the safe systems approach, and all of the work I do, I keep these 6 principles in mind. And many of you have heard them, but I'll just go through them quickly. So death and serious injuries are unacceptable, right? We don't want to accept those. Those are something that we need to deal with. Humans make mistakes. How many of you might have crossed outside of the crosswalk today as you were coming here, right? We all make mistakes sometimes. We don't want that to end in an injury or a death. Humans are vulnerable. So as we're walking and biking, we know we're vulnerable. We're some of the most vulnerable road users out there. We don't have anything around us in a car. Responsibility is shared by everyone. It's shared by government. It's shared by universities. It's shared by all of us, citizens. Safety is proactive. So this takes a proactive approach. We are using the Hydrogen networks, but we want to be proactive, not reactive, right? We don't always want to be reacting to these crashes. And then redundancy is crucial. So those are the principles of the safe system approach, and we will be following that in our work. And I work at a research institution right at the University of South Florida. So as we do this work, we're thinking about all of these different types of principles and how can we do the best and how can we make this last? How can we look at it and see what works best? Our overall goal is to reduce injuries and fatalities on these HIMs, but it's much more than that. I know that the presenter before mentioned culture change in Tampa. That's what we need, right? We need to see more people biking and walking. As you see these, when I'm going to unveil these corridors, and you kind of think about the roads that those are on, they're a little different than downtown Tampa. So we're going to follow a social marketing process. And how many of you are familiar with social marketing? So it's not social media. So social marketing is more of a systematic approach. It looks at different marketing principles and how we can use those principles and do the best for public good, right? What are we doing? We're not like the private sector. Maybe we can follow those principles, but we're trying to do a public good. We're trying to make change for everyone, for society. So that's what our approach is. And I'm going to go through just the social marketing process quickly. So I am doing a situation analysis right now. This project just started at the beginning of February. The first thing I'm doing is a situation analysis. Each one of these corridors, I know them well. I'm a bicyclist also, and I like to walk a lot. I walk and bike on all these corridors, but I'm still going and doing a situation analysis. I'm looking at every single business. I'm looking at every single stakeholder on these 7 corridors. I'm going to look at how can we best solve this problem. I'm not going to decide that. It's going to be the stakeholders on each one of those corridors, and we may come up with different campaigns because one campaign doesn't work for everyone, right? Does anyone know the biggest principle of marketing? Marketing to everyone is marketing to none. If you're taking marketing classes, you have to have a target audience, you have to have a campaign, or it's not going to work. So we're going to, after we do the situation analysis, which I've already recruited Peter and Jonathan to go and do some videos down 56th Street with me as we ride down and take those videos. After we do that, we're going to select our target audiences. Again, we're not going to, our campaign at the end, it could be the geofencing, it could be all of these different type of marketing tactics. I'm not going to decide those. We're going to decide those from what we see, what we learn. Then we'll select our target audience. Then we'll set our behavior objectives, our target goals. We're going to identify our barriers, benefits, and motivators. I mean, what are those barriers that someone, has that they won't get on a bike and ride? Or what, there's these barriers, and we want to identify those and look at how we can take those barriers away for if that happens to be our objective. We're going to develop a positioning statement, and then we'll determine our marketing mix. This is where the fun comes in, because everyone always likes to think, social media, just social marketing, social media. But this is where the fun comes in. Once we do our research, we get to choose our marketing mix. And I know a lot of people like the geofencing, so it depends on how we're going to reach those people. We're going to identify those communication channels. I mean, it could be, who knows, we could be doing, weekly coffee meetings on one corridor, and then we could be going out and doing our on-the-street education on another. It depends on like who's living and using those corridors. We also want to reach the motorists, right? That could be one of our target audiences. So we'll look at how to reach them. And then we'll develop the survey and our messaging. So here are the corridors. So if you look at this map, you can see we have chosen 7. These corridors were chosen in collaboration with the TPO and FDOT. And Emmett might have some comments on these. But at any time, Emmett. So these were the corridors that are chosen. These are where I'm doing the situation analysis on, and you may recognize these. So the first one is 56th Street. Do you want to unveil these? I'll let you unveil them, yes. So we do a collaboration here.
Yes, that sounds good. But yeah, no, like Julie was saying, these were in collaboration with the TPO. We looked at the Vision Zero plan that the TPO has developed to make sure that we're identifying the corridors that we want to target. So 56th Street is one of them. The second corridor is also going to be south part of 56th Street from Flight Avenue to Bush Boulevard. Sorry, the north part of 56th Street. Then we also have State Road 60 on Animal Drive from Oriole Road to Falkenberg. This is I see some head nodding there. This is definitely a high priority location for us. There's a resurfacing project that David was mentioning was going to go through this area. We'll be adding some sidewalks, we'll be adding some additional facilities to help with the mobility for pedestrians and bicyclists in this area as well. For fourth corridor, it's Ford Avenue from Waters Avenue to Bougainvillea. It's a very high pedestrian corridor, high activity from bicyclists. Nebraska Avenue from Columbus Avenue to East Hannah Avenue. That's also another pedestrian safety improvement project that's currently under design right now. That's going to be going on. That's going to be constructed in the coming years along this corridor. That also helps take pedestrian and bicycle. Number 6, we have Sheldon Road. This is, you see, what I want to point out here is a combination, not just state roads. I know state roads are a good percentage of the high-gear network, but there are also some county corridors. So we didn't want to just focus on state roads. We need to be a combination of state and county roads. So Sheldon Road from Hillsborough Avenue to Waters Avenue. And number 7, that's again another county corridor, 15th Street from Powell Avenue to Fletcher Avenue.
And I can tell from Mike's nodding, you know those well, right?
Right, all of them are horrible. Worst one is Bush Boulevard.
So I know you'll be a good partner along with both of them.
Call me anytime, I would hope.
I will. And then these are just 2 examples. We have these for all the high-entry network corridors, but just so you can see, this is some of the research that's been done looking at the crashes on these corridors. So you can see we probably have some great information we're going to pull from this as we look at where all these crashes are occurring. And so that's going to help guide us as we go and meet with our stakeholders and look at these corridors. This project is really fast. It's got a 1-year timeline, and it just started beginning of February. So it's going to be really fast. We're going to get some great results on it. It is a federally funded program, and so here's our timeline. So right now, we're going to assess the high-entry network environments. This is the situation analysis I told you about. We're out there doing that now. After that, we're going to develop the campaign. So we have all of that information together. We have all of our stakeholders' input, and then we're going to look at the social marketing components and look at our target audiences that we'll choose. Then one of the most important part of this is we pre-test our campaigns. We never put a campaign out there unless we pre-test it with our target audience. Because how many of you just developed a campaign and said, oh, I think this is great. And then you put it out there. We see that a lot, right? And so we always pre-test and learn so much. If you can pre-test your campaign, anything you're doing, pre-test it with your audience and you'll learn quite a bit from that. Then we will implement and manage the campaign. I'm thinking I might have 3 months on each side, buffers, and then run the campaign during the middle of that. We have a big budget for the marketing components of this. And then, of course, we monitor and evaluate. So we have an evaluation plan for this. And so our hope is when we have completed this one-year project, we're going to really have some great information. It could be a model for other programs across the country. So we're hoping that this goes well and that we'll have some really great results from it. So that is all we have. Emma, unless you want to add some final comments, we're very excited to do this. It's a unique campaign, a unique way of doing this, and we're hoping for everyone's participation and some great results.
Yeah, yeah. If anybody's interested in participating, I think it's always welcome to join us and write the corridors, watch the corridors. Give us your feedback if you're already familiar with the locations.
I mean, video documenting them, also taking photos and going in and talking to all the main stakeholders, the businesses. There may be some cities, there's high schools, there's elementary schools, we do those corridors, 56 for example, is King High, you know, we communicate with all of them. So I'd love to hear your ideas and help you all participate in it.
Call me. Definitely.
I will. I know how to reach you.
Open up for questions.
My question is, are you working with USF College of Public Health with social work movement, or is that just in-house?
We sure do. Dr. Mamuna Pasha, you know, she works with Cutter. We actually have a social work and transportation certificate program. And so we definitely want to collaborate with help with USF Health. And she's been amazing. And any of you can take that course. It's free to Florida residents. And it will open enrollment. Will happen again later this year. It's all virtual, and it's a really great course for anyone in the public sector who wants to learn about social marketing. So yes, thanks for mentioning that. We have such a great relationship with them.
Okay. I got a quick question. How would you define success for this program?
Well, I think that it's a comprehensive, to be able to reduce fatalities, it requires a comprehensive. It's not just education. So this is going to be focusing on that missing part, because it's a lot of, most of the times we hear about engineering improvements, and many people ask for engineering improvements, but rarely we look at it from an educational approach. You know, there's high visibility enforcement, if you're familiar with that. It's just law enforcement agencies to go out to different corridors and they enforce and educate as well. And then there's the engineering improvements that come out of 3R projects to TRCs and county infrastructure efforts. But education is a big component. So in order for us to be able to keep moving that data down, it's gonna require all three approaches. So the success of this company is, you know, seeing that trend going down. You know, District 7 last year saw a decrease in crashes, in fatal serious injury crashes. We're hoping that with this new approach, that's the first time this is something that's being tried. So, you know, it's going to be definitely sort of like a learning, like see what is working and what is not, to be able to do it in the future. But the biggest component of it, like you mentioned, is the last piece, is monitor and evaluate. Just to keep seeing those fatalities and fatal crashes and serious injuries. That's to us what how we want to see the success of this project.
Thank you.
John Mickey, the number one, congrats on doing that. I think it's really important to try to understand what is actually going on in the corridors, and not just from an engineering lens, from a community lens as well. And I think you've got a good scope that's going to help get there. My question would be, what is your final product deliverable like you guys are wrapping this project up?
Well, we have deliverables throughout the project. So I have, you know, my first deliverable is going to be my situation analysis. The second deliverable would be the campaign. And so I think if you want to go to the end, what it's going to look like is I'm hoping we're going to have a really great program that we can replicate. It's going to be an education outreach program. It's going to be something, like I said, it might be unique in the end. It will be the combination of a report and something we can replicate on other corridors. However, I think the true success of the program is when we have come up with a program that the people living and working on that corridor are more comfortable walking and biking. And that also means we're gonna reach the motorists too, right? So in the end, it's about making those corridors better for our citizens. So, and again, the engineering is very important too, but this is an education and outreach program. And so, does that answer your question? In the end, we will have a deliverable that will be a comprehensive report, something that's replicable. I have deliverables in phases that you're welcome to see. I can, show you those as we complete.
But it'll be a document that kind of summarizes what you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
for each corridor.
Yeah, and if also, I mean, one of my plans is to document this by video too. So at the end, I have something everyone can sort of be passionate about. I'm gonna do interviews with some of my stakeholders. So besides a report and something that people can replicate, I'm also going to have something that really tells the story of these corridors, the people on them, how they live and work there. And so we have a lot of work ahead of ourselves, but I'm very passionate about this, and I think this is going to be a great project, and it's going to be unique. And with everyone's help, we're going to have a great product in the end.
Chris.
Chris Heller up with Boulevard County. You've got 2 county road corridors
Yes.
on here, and a county point of contact on what you're doing. Or do you need one?
Yeah, you know what, I said this just started, and so one of the things I'm working with Lisa and Gina, I'm gonna have some monthly stakeholder meetings via Teams, so anybody can participate. If you would like to participate, I'll love you there. Right now, I'm making my list, and I'm gonna have monthly team meetings, because I want to stay on track, I want everyone to be there and see what we're doing and stay on track. But those will be Teams meetings, they'll be monthly, and you're more than welcome, anyone here's more than welcome to be part of that. I'm kind of coordinating with Gina and Lisa and Wayne, trying to figure out the dates that we're going to do them. But again, they'll be recorded and they'll be via Teams, all virtual, so.
All right, Mike.
Participate.
And I mean,
Yeah.
you may want to reach out to some of our, engineering and operations folks as well.
Definitely have, I'm sure she'll be a part of it, so.
All right, I believe Mike had a question over there.
Actually, I have a comment. Please call me. I would love to be a part of that. Some of that, what you're talking about, I've already done that homework.
Yep.
You know that. I have video, I have pictures, I have illustrations, and I have a few voice recordings about all these corridors. If most of you don't know who I am, I ride every corner of this city, from Gandy, Boulevard, Fletcher, and beyond. And I cycle every day. Some of these corridors are bad. I have actual deaths from these corridors. Fatalities, accidents. Matter of fact, I have a recording in my phone now from Bush and 50th, 2 accidents within an hour. And the other accident, police, firemen, and all them weren't even done yet. Second one. So call me. Definitely, I have the info, and there's something else that I wanted to mention to you. There is a website called Cyclique. They sell video cameras with lights for the front and back of the cyclist bike. I was looking to get sponsored for that, to get you the information, because honestly, nobody rides more than me, and I hit all these corridors, and I live on Bush.
Do you have cameras?
I don't have cameras, but I have cameras in my house that record the accidents every day.
But
I don't like, I don't, but these cameras were built strictly for the camera, because there's a lot of stuff. Okay, I know you said you got a few people that are gonna go down 50, 56, but it's kind of hard to hold a camera and record. These are already implemented on your bike with lights, so you can't tell. They'll pick up more of what's going on than you trying to hold. Sometimes if you hold the camera, people see it and not get an active one. It's totally undercover. You can actually see drivers cutting off cycling. It's called cyclique.com. Check it out. You can buy the cameras, but that might be something that you can partner with them. See if you can have someone sponsor and find some cyclists to put those cameras on. And you can post the videos online. And they talk about it, and it goes nationwide. maybe that's something you can do. But yeah, and my other comment was that why aren't we starting in driver's ed? I mean, you have kids out there getting ready to get their license. Adults, start with micromobility, pedestrian, cyclists, motorists, scooters, walking, pay attention to when you drive into all those things instead of us trying to do it now. Start in the beginning. For me, that's where I see where most of the problem is at.
DOT sponsors a program that I manage, and we go to all of the high schools in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Southern Pasco, and we teach all of their drivers ed. So I have someone who goes in and teaches ed, driver's ed every single semester, and it's been going on for about 10 years. It's very successful.
Right. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was about when I was doing Uber Eats on the bike and I was doing the hotels, they have pamphlets and brochures. Why we don't have a pamphlet there about cycling, pedestrian, traffic skills for people that come out of town? Because people that come from like New York as an example. In New York, you can't take a right turn. It's against the law. So out here, you can take a right turn, but they don't know that. That's a major cause accident right there, because they don't take a right turn, and also road rage because the person that's tamping you, beep, 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 move, right turn. But they're in New York if they don't know. So maybe that's another thing you might want to look at, because we have so many people moving here, and we're bringing up the tourism. Tourists come out here, I don't know, traffic 101 out here. Maybe that's something we can look into, and it'll bring down some of these things. Another example, like I was talking about, Bush. Bush has no bike. So basically, I got to fight because I live on Bush with traffic. And by the way, they speed 75, 85 miles an hour on Bush. I have the camera out my window of my apartment, clocking everything. We see them clocking right there. And part of that is some of the communities out there, like where I live above a hookah lounge. They're open until 5 in the morning, even though they don't serve liquor. Those guys smoke weed outside in the parking lot and all that. To be honest with you. 1, 2, they do donuts, they get rowdy, and the owner himself peels out with his Corvette every night, racing down Bush. Why aren't there TPD in that section doing their job? I see none of that. I got pulled over because I forgot I had a contempt of court. I went to jail for having my lights not on the bike. Now, someone told me to fight that with riding while black. I'm not going to, because I'm going to admit to y'all, I had no lights on. I deserve to get pulled over and get arrested. Straight up. I'm going to be real. And that goes for anybody else that's riding tonight without lights, especially on Bush. It's a hazard. It's a hazard. I have over 23 accidents in 2 years' time just from the corridor of 56 and 40th Street. 23 accidents. 5 of them are deaths. 1 had 3 kids that died in the car. We got to stop that. And it's not just, don't leave it up to them, don't leave it up to the police. Each and every one of you play part in that, just like I do my best to educate people, but I can't do it alone. I can't. I do it on social media. I talk to people. I talk to kids. A lot of people that do group rides don't want to ride with the kids, and I understand it because of the wheelie and they're out of control. But look, if you go on their level and you talk to them like adults, talk to them like kids, they'll listen. They'll listen. So,
All right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I got a little carried away, but I had to make a point.
Yeah. Hopefully they reach out to you and share some of that experience with them. Gotcha. All right, I'm gonna say let's go ahead and keep this train moving. And thank you very much for that presentation. So up next, Johnny Wong, 2023 Safety Performance Targets. And then just a quick question on time, Ben, because it is now 6:57. Do we go until we finish, or do we go until 7:30?
It's your call. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just kind of.
7:30, yeah. We should
Yeah.
understand it by then. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't want to take more than 2 hours. So would we be able to reschedule things if we need to?
Yeah, we can reschedule the last item.
Okay. All right, so let's make that the goal to get through items D and E before we close out. So, John, you got the floor.
I'm gonna do my part and be real quick. John, CPO staff, I'm the director of our data and analytics team. And today I'm giving you an update on our 2023 safety performance targets. I wish I was here to give you better news, but I'm not, so let's rip this Band-Aid up together, shall we? So beginning with what are our performance targets? This is coming from federal legislation that requires DOTs and MPOs to set annual targets for a number of safety measures. They're one-year targets, so they have to be realistic and data-driven, really forecasting what can be achieved in a single year. Of course, we don't like setting any target that's greater than 0, but realistically, what can we achieve in 1 year becomes the question that we have to grapple with. There are 6 categories of targets identified in that legislation, and they're all shown on the screen in front of you. PM1 is often referred to, or it's often referred to as PM1 because it was the first rule that came out for these performance targets, and it pertains to safety, which we're going to be talking about today. Next, we'll be updating PM2, which deals with pavement and bridge condition, then travel time reliability, then transit asset condition, then public transportation safety, and then finally greenhouse gases. So on this slide, the top half of that box shows the 5 federally required measures, and they're all on a 5-year rolling average. So when we're looking at the data and coming up with our performance, we have to look at the previous 5 years. For us, that would be 2018 through 2022, and then we use that historical trend to forecast what to expect in 2023. So first, we're looking at number of fatalities. Next, rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. Next, serious injuries, serious injury rate per 100 million VMT, and then non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries combined. This is probably of most interest to this committee, non-motorized bike and ped. Some years back, our board asked that we produce discretionary measures. So one is the number of fatalities not on a 5-year rolling average. So they want to see just that 1-year performance, and then we also track 5-year average of motorcycle fatalities. The way we do this is a little complicated, not too hard to understand, but we look at least 10 years worth of data, focusing on the previous 5 years to get a realistic idea of what the trend will be in the coming year. We look at safety investments, how much have the local governments been spending on average over the past 5 years, and if they were to spend that same amount on safety projects and yield some benefits, how much can we reduce the forecasted crashes by? So when we track this out for 2023, we're anticipating that our annual fatalities will land somewhere around 216, 217. But with the investments we're making in safety, we know we can reduce that by at least 1%. So a conservative estimate of what 2023 will yield is 214 fatalities. So our target was to achieve fewer than that. This is the 5-year rolling average of annual fatalities, 224. It's a little bit higher than the single year, and that's because we had record high number of fatalities in Hillsborough County 2021, and then also back in 2019. So we're factoring that into the average. The fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled is 1.56. For motorcycle fatalities, 40.21. Serious injuries, 1,084. That's been trending down for the past decade at least, and I'll touch on why we think that is toward the end. Injury rate per VMT is 7.56. And then the non-motorized fatalities and injuries is trending up slightly. We're anticipating 241 by the end of this year. I didn't give this information to the board or the other committees, but I figured you all would want to see it. This is a map showing all the fatal and injury bike and ped crashes in 2023. You can see that it's like a scatter plot. There is a cluster in downtown Tampa, north up to like Bush, Hillsborough, the major culprits. We know that these are some of the worst roads to ride your bike across the county. but we also have similar problems in unincorporated county, Temple Terrace, Plant City. No jurisdiction is exempt. It's a little bit difficult to read. I used an FDOT crash application to map out this heat map. You see all up and down the 275 corridor from like downtown up to Bush and maybe even north of that is a hot spot. There's very limited data available to us about bike and ped crashes. So when I mapped out all the bike and ped fatals and injury crashes in 2022, there were 247. 132 of the crash reports showed that there was no significant contributing factor by the driver. What that means to me is that the driver did nothing wrong, and I suspect that that's not accurate. Obviously, if the cyclist or pedestrian gets carted off in the hospital, they can't tell their side of the story, so the law enforcement is left to take the word of the driver. Only 7 of these 247 crash reports showed that speed was a contributing factor. I also venture a guess to say that that's not accurate. So our analysis of what the actual factors leading to these crashes is very limited, right? We can't develop statistical significance when most of the crash reports are showing that the driver did nothing wrong. So because I know a lot of you are involved in advocacy and maybe participate in the CTST, Community Traffic Safety Team, what I would ask you all to do is to spread the word to law enforcement to be as accurate as possible and make an informed decision when they're filling out their crash reports, because we don't have data to support our proposals to address the problem. It makes our job much more challenging. Some of the takeaways for this year are that several targets were not met in 2022. However, the year did show a decrease in fatalities and serious injuries. It was a huge decrease, in fact. 2021 was a record high in Hillsborough County. 2022, not quite as bad. We had 30 fewer fatalities. We can't attribute that to the work that the TPO or FDOT or any local government did. It's probably a result of some behavioral changes that we can't really account for. We have some ideas, but can't chalk that up to good engineering. Motorcycle fatalities and bike and ped fatalities and injuries continue to go up. Non-motorized, so bike and ped fatalities and serious injuries have been increasing at least over the past couple of years. And if you look at a longer time horizon, they still continue to be increasing. There was a 9% jump from 2020 to 2021, and then 2.5% from 21 to last year. Some of you may be familiar with Smart Growth America's Dangerous by Design report. They take a look at factors contributing to pedestrian danger, basically. Smart Growth is a pretty well-respected think tank. They published their report last year, and it had a number of recommendations, things that we can implement. Among those was comprehensive data collection efforts need to be improved. They know the issues with the crash reports, and they also understand that it makes planners' jobs really difficult to plan when we don't have sufficient evidence to justify our efforts. They're also working with NHTSA, I believe is the agency, to work on vehicle design evaluation. So cars now should have a wider range of view. They don't want you to be in your car and have blind spots with the pillars in the front or the back. If you can't see someone riding or walking, it makes it difficult to avoid hitting them. And they, more than anything, recommend increasing funding for safety. No criticisms there. Locally, what the TPO has done, working with our partners, and what is at our discretion to help improve and address the problem, is that we work with the local governments to help them design and prioritize safety projects in their CIPs, capital improvement plans. And then with our 5-year transportation improvement program, we've made an effort beginning last year and moving forward to try to award money to projects that are shovel ready. So in the past, if a safety plan or feasibility study came to us, it was like open season. We could award that project with funds, but we would rather award funds to local governments that are going to build the projects quicker so that there's no delay, so that we can, basically like start addressing this problem now. And Wade and Lisa and some of my colleagues that have been mentioned several times tonight already, they did a major speed management action plan that wrapped up a few years back that has really good recommendations for how to address this problem countywide. I think no surprise that speed is one of the biggest issues that we face. This slide is showing a report card, our 2022 targets that were set and how we performed. Did we meet them or not? Fatalities, no, we didn't meet them. Fatalities on a 5-year rolling average, yes, we did. Because of that really significant drop in 2022, that almost artificially reduced the 5-year average. So we were able to meet that, although 217 is still really, really high. Fatalities per VMT, yes, we met the target. Motorcycle fatalities, serious injury rate, and bike and ped, no, we did not meet those targets. I already walked you through the proposed performance targets. We proposed these to the committees and the TPO board last month, so these were already adopted at the February 8th board meeting. So this is more than anything just an FYI, and I wish I had better news to present you all with, but those are the facts. Any questions?
Yeah.
Dr. Wong, the data that you're getting, the 247, is that from police reports or is that from traffic homicide reports?
So I use the FDOT District 7 crash data management system, and one of the filters that you can select is contributing actions, right? So they're digitizing all the police reports for all crashes up to and including present day. And when I filtered out contributing actions, there's a long list, like a dozen or so that you can select from. The results show that there was often nothing entered. And yeah, I think that answers your question, right?
Yeah, but it also lends into what you suspect, because you're going to find more information on the traffic homicide report. That's more in a narrative form.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm open to doing additional digging. If you can point me in the direction of an additional database that we can seek out, I'd be happy to do that as long as it's easy to cross-reference.
Okay.
What are the implications of not meeting the targets?
There are no implications for MPOs, TPOs. DOT, if they don't meet their target, they often have to sit through like a review process with Federal Highway. And I believe that this happened some years ago. FDOT rolled out that Target Zero campaign. And when it submitted its statewide target, it was zero. FHWA saw that it's neither data-driven nor realistic. So as a result, they had to develop a highway safety implementation plan and do a lot of other bureaucratic processes. There's no penalties for the TPO, but in the spirit of what FHWA wants to see, they want to see that we're tracking so that we know if we're improving or not. We've always decided to shy away from an aspirational target.
Thanks. So Johnny, you said you were going to kind of devolve or explain why what was happening with the serious injuries.
Yeah.
Does that seem like one of the bright spots in the?
I wish. Thanks for bringing me back to that. So you saw the graph. Serious injuries have been decreasing for a really long time. However, we think that those serious injuries are now being converted to fatalities because during the pandemic and even following that, there were a lot of obstacles to getting people treatment in a timely manner, right? Like, and FHWA published a memo on this some years back that following a crash, responders were having trouble getting people triaged into the ER timely because there were COVID protocols and other things. At the same time, what may have formerly been a serious injury due to the nature of the vehicle, vehicles are weighing like 30% more. SUVs are the most common vehicle out on the road. What would have been an injury is now a fatality because the energy of an SUV hitting you is like double or triple a passenger car. So those are just some things that we suspect are.
Okay. Anybody else? can move on to the last presentation of the night, or at least I think the last one we'll have time for. So the Gandy Boulevard Bridge PD&E, and Connor McDonald is going to present to us. Did I get that right?
Secret identity. So my name is Craig Fox. I'm not sure who Connor McDonald is. If I take over my life, no custom. All right, so thank you for having me here this evening. I'm here to present on the Gandy Boulevard PD&E. First off, I just want to explain the project limits of the study. It extends from 4th Street North in Pinellas County, northeast across Old Tampa Bay to Southwest Shore Boulevard. Now I want to go to the purpose and need of the study. The main purpose is, well, the two main purposes are to reduce traffic congestion and also to improve bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. The need is provided by the fact that the segment 4th Street to the west end of the Gandy Bridge has a deficient level of service as of 2016. We're in 2023 now, so that's a long since passed. And we're expected to only worsen in future years. The Gandy bridges will have a deficient level of service actually around beyond 2040. That hasn't been updated since then in the study. There's also the need for the bike and pedestrian accommodations because it's limited on-street and also bicycle facilities and also trails. There is the trail on the north end of the project. However, that does not continuously connect to trails within the project corridor. And there are sidewalks on the south end, but those are not continuously on full limits also. And there is a 4-foot shoulder that can be used as bike lane, but it's not striped until one of these ground direction after Brighton Bay Boulevard. And this would also connect with the Pinellas County Active Transportation Plan. Oh, sorry, the Port of Pinellas Active Transportation Plan connected to the Duke Energy Trail and also the Pinellas Loop and the trail on the Wolfman. So we broke up the project into 3 main components. The first component is at the Pinellas segment. That's around 3.6 miles from 4th Street to the west end of the Gandy Bridges. The second segment is the base segment that extends from the Gandy Bridges over Old Tampa Bay. And the third and final segment is the Hillsborough County segment from the east end of the Gandy Bridges to West Shore Boulevard. Now, Gandy Boulevard is an important east-west corridor in both Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. It is part of Florida's strategic intermodal system. It connects regionally to I-275, US 19, the Leroy Summit Expressway, and also it's also a hurricane evacuation route that connects regional centers in both St. Pete and Tampa. I just want to quickly review the existing typical sections. So in all these typical sections, we are looking east, so north is kind of to the left to get your position. So the existing typical in the Pinellas segment is typically 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, with a 12-foot trail on the north side. Like I mentioned, there are sidewalks sporadically on the south side, but since it's so sporadic, we didn't feel it short of the typical. The second segment is the base segment, and that's comprised of 2 bridges. You notice that there are different heights because the bridge on the left was built in 1996, the bridge on the right was built in 1975, and as we go through the years, we set the grades on just updated data for structural integrity. So they are both contain 2 lanes in each direction with 10-foot outside shoulders and 6-foot inside shoulders. And the third and final in this typical section is the Hillsborough segment, which consists of 2 lanes in each direction at grade. And there are limited trails on the north and south side at various locations. Again, it's not connected throughout the whole corridor. And there's also the Leroy Summit Expressway, which just opened up a couple years ago. And this segment is actually managed by the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority and not the Florida Department of Transportation. Now onto the proposed typical sections, starting back again in Pinellas County, from 4th Street to Brighton Bay, and also from San Martin to east of San Fernando Drive. That's typical section number 1. We're proposing a grade separated 4-lane divided roadway with 10-foot outside shoulders and 8-foot inside shoulders. And then it would also have frontage roads, 2 lanes in each direction with a multi-use trail on both the north side and on the south side. So we're able to not only complete the trail on the north side, but also add a full trail segment trail on the north side, but also a full trail segment on the south side also. So we're very excited about that. And also by grade separating and migrates the traffic, the majority of the traffic into those grade separated lanes, which means frontage roads reduces the volume of traffic on those frontage roads a lot. So those bikes and pedestrians will have a lot less exposure to fast-moving vehicles. Typical section number 2, this is actually in between those 2 segments of typical section number 1. This is from Brighton Bay Boulevard to San Martin Boulevard. You'll notice that it's on a viaduct in this portion. And the reason why we put it on the viaduct is to the north are some apartment buildings that have been left at the original, we call it MSE wall section. That would have residential impacts or residential relocation. So the viaduct is more expensive, but the payoff is that we don't have to relocate folks, and that's more important. So we're able to tuck those frontage roads underneath, which speeds up the section around that area. Now moving further east, this is from San Fernando Drive to the west end of Gandy Bridges. You notice that we migrate to a 3-lane typical section on the grade separated portion. 3 12-foot lanes in each direction, 10-foot outside shoulders, 10-foot inside shoulders. And the frontage roads, we narrow down to 1 frontage road in each direction, and we continue that 12-foot multi-use trail. And this is the area that you notice in the causeway portion. So there's a lot less traffic on those frontage roads in this portion. Now moving on to the bridges. I'm going to start to the right and then move over to the left. So to the right, that is the 1975 bridge. So that bridge, this existing eastbound bridge, will be demolished, and the existing 96 bridge, which is to the left, can be widened. That bridge was specifically built to withstand the weight of a widening of a capacity job, so we can widen that one, while the 75 bridge to the right was not built to the same standards. So that substructure can't support the weight of the additional structural material in the traffic. So that's why that one has to be demolished. And moving over to the left is going to be a new westbound bridge. So both these bridge structures, when widened, they'll have 3 12-foot lanes in each direction with 10-foot shoulders on both the inside and outside. And then the northern side of the structure, that will have a 16-foot multi-use trail along the 2. So this will connect both Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. And at the end of each bridge, we'll be able to connect the trails underneath, so that folks on the south side will be easily to get over to the north side without having to worry about crossing the grade separated portion. There'll also be other crossings located along the roadway, which I'll get into in the next slides. And the third segment, typical section number 5, is for Hillsborough County. You'll notice that we're not proposing any widening within Hillsborough County. We are proposing the extension of the multi-use sidewalks. So they'll vary from 6 feet to 12 feet whenever practically possible. And we're in both sides of the bay, we're looking to connect to existing trail systems or future planned trail systems. So we'll continue those 2 lanes in each direction to Gandy Boulevard. You also see the summit extension going above. Now for access management. So we'll have full median openings located at Brighton Bay Boulevard and Mangrove Clay or San Martin Boulevard. And those are imaged here with Brighton Bay Boulevard to the left and San Martin Boulevard to the right. And this is also the portion that I mentioned is on viaducts. So you can see here that we tuck it underneath. We do have a little bit of right-of-way impacts to the Period Farms apartment complex, but it doesn't result in residential locations. That's kind of why we put the viaducts in that area. We'll also have just east of San Fernando Drive, we'll have 3 different full median openings located at different locations, 1,400 feet, 4,600 feet, and also 9,000 feet east of San Fernando Drive. So that kind of starts around where the gateway is on the Pinellas side. All these 3 are on the Pinellas side. And then moves further along the causeway, there'll be other openings, which will have trail crossings at each of those openings. Right now, they're proposed as stop control intersections, and for the coordination, they need to be signalized in certain things for that in the design phase. And we also, on the Hillsborough side, we're looking at a full median opening 500 feet west of Bridge Street, which is located right there, and also the directional median at Bridge Street. And this is going to be very nice for the folks, because this connects over to the Gandy boat ramp. So right now, since they opened up the Selman extension, vehicles with a boat and a trailer, they have to kind of go in right where the extension turns down and then do a U-turn. So this will make that access a lot easier, because it won't have to go past the ramp and then do a U-turn. They just make a left turn directly into the Gandy boat ramp. So, all right, now for our stormwater management and floodplain compensation, we're proposing two ponds. One of them is an existing pond that we can widen within FDOT right of way. That's the pond shown to the left. And that is at 4th Street North in Gandy Boulevard. And the second pond is just south of Oak Street. It's around the Darby Lane complex, just adjacent to there. And that is a new pond that requires right of way, which requires 1.3 acres of right of way. No floodplain compensation is required for this project. So as part of the PD&E study, we also look at natural resources, cultural resources, social, environmental effects, and physical effects, ranging from everything from wetlands, archaeological features, relocations, and also air quality, noise, and contamination. And more information about that will be available at the public hearing that we have coming up next Tuesday. So just reviewing the project costs, the design is $59.86 billion, and this is for all three segments that we're looking at. The right-of-way costs are around $41.9 million, and construction is $598.57 million. Again, this is for all three segments. So to bring a total cost of $761 million. This is consistent with both the Fort Pinellas and the Hillsborough TPO long-range transportation plans. It's currently, and the section that we have funding on is the design segment for Fort Pinellas is listed as the priority number 20 in their LRTP. So the study began in February of 2020, and we continue with data collection through August of 2022. We did have a delay there. As you know, what happened in March of 2020 was that the whole world kind of flipped on its head. But thankfully, we were able to push forward and still get to this point. So preparation of documents is ongoing. We do have draft documents stored both at the department and the library and on the project website. And we're anticipating public hearings to be next Tuesday. I have more information about that on the next slide. And we're anticipating the approval of the PD&E study in the second quarter of 2023. As far as funding goes, like I mentioned, the only portion that we have funding for right now is the design segment of the Pinellas segment. So it's sort of their fiscal year 2020 through 2022 to 2023. Right away is not currently funded, neither is construction. And the kind of thing goes for the other two segments. While they don't require right away for the base segment or the Hillsborough section, it's all within FDOT right away. We do not have any design funding or construction funding for the segments right now. So the public hearing is going to be next Tuesday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. We sent out notification flyers to all the partner agencies along with the general public. So we're asking everybody to attend. You can attend both in person and virtually online. Ever since the pandemic, we've been consistent with having virtual meetings in conjunction with the in-person meetings. It's been pretty good response. You know, we have a lot more online participation, which allows a lot more folks to attend. So the in-person location is going to be at the Pinellas Park Performing Arts Center, which is located on the star that map just a little west of those project limits. And to attend virtually, all you have to do is just go and register to the GoToWebinar. You don't need to register to attend in person. You can even register after the meeting starts. You know, so don't feel like you have to. I mean, definitely do it now so you don't forget. But if you don't get around to it, and you remember on the day off, that's fine. So here's the project website. There's my contact information, and yes, I'm Craig Fox. I don't know the other guy. Open it up for questions.
Any questions?
Can you go, sorry, go ahead. Craig Dave Saletti, just a quick question. In respect to that eastern department you mentioned is going to demolish, was there considerations of preserving that for multi-mode use after this project's done?
Yeah, we did consider that. And we know that's kind of what the situation was with the Section Trail Bridge. which after it became the county's responsibility for it. But, with these bridge structures over time, they continue to degrade. So what happened with the Friendship Trail is that chunks of concrete, rebar started to kind of fall off into the bay. And so that gets a really dangerous kind of situation because especially with smaller vessels, kayaks and whatnot, they can be anywhere in the bridge segment. And it poses a greater threat. And the older the bridge gets, the more and more costly it is to maintain. So the county actually has to kind of eat the cost to demolish it. So to avoid a situation like that again, we'd rather just go ahead and demolish it and then build a new structure with the multimodal facilities on that structure. Just kind of avoid that continued increased maintenance costs.
Understood, thanks.
It's Peter Davitt. Can you go back a couple of slides? You had a slide showing the Center Park trails, and if I keep going.
The typical section.
No, come back to me now, the other way. Towards the end, go back, go forward, I guess. Yeah, all right, stop here. So these traffic lights, not really sure where we're at on this. So we have a trail here.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to go to downtown St. Pete, I think you go down San Martin on a bicycle. Does that make sense, Jonathan?
No, this is on the Hillsborough side.
Oh, this is the.
No, yeah, you're gonna go to speed. That curves around.
Right.
St. Martin.
Put you down.
That one, yeah,
Right.
by Riviera Bay.
So you're gonna put a light here, I guess, because right now, if you're riding your bike along here and you have to get to San Martin,
Yeah.
you've got
Right now.
2, 4, 6 lanes of, hopscotch.
Yeah.
So is that the plan here, or you were saying something about an underpass or something, or a?
So the underpass that I mentioned, those are more towards the end of the bridges, so that you can go underneath the bridges. But so for here, there will be trail accommodations to cross the intersection, but instead of crossing the 4+ lanes plus turn lanes at this intersection now, what you'll have is just the 2-lane frontage roads to cross on each side. Talk about traffic volume.
Right, because this piece is elevated, I guess.
Yes, sorry. So the elevated portion is in dark orange. So the center portion here is going to be elevated. That's going to carry the majority of the traffic. And the brighter yellow portion to the north here and to the south here, those are the frontage roads. So
there'll be a way to go under this overpass, this elevated part.
yes, that's correct. So the trail's going to be at grade, same as the frontage roads.
Right.
And so folks will be able to just cross underneath. Just cross the frontage roads instead of having to cross.
And if people are on the frontage road, they want to get up on the grade, can they, do they?
They can get on at
They don't get on at the beginning.
Yeah, they can get on at strategic locations. I don't think the location is shown on this concept, but we actually have the concepts. We just put them on the website on Tuesday, and then we'll have boards up at the public hearing next Tuesday also. So that does show where you can get on and off.
I was just curious because I've ridden my bike down there and it's a challenge to get from one side to the other on a bicycle. If you're patient, you're good.
Yeah,
You're not
it's a lot of
patient.
traffic, especially in the afternoons. Yes.
John, did you have something?
All good. I'll hit their website.
Thank you. All right, yeah, thank you so much, Greg. Well, that is 7:30, so I think we can go ahead and stick to the 2-hour timeline. And we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Anything that we haven't covered, we can cover the next one. So, all right, do I get a?
I'm going to be charged.
All right, all those in favor? All right. Adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. That's a lot of. We have to like 9 o'clock at night. You're like,
Oh, that's a lot.